Hey guys, Josh here from Sportitude Running, and in my hand I hold the incredibly lightweight Nike Vaporfly Next version 2. So this shoe here has just landed in Australia the middle part of April 2021, and obviously it's had a global release a few weeks prior to this in the US and other parts of the Northern Hemisphere. But here in Australia we've just got our hands on them, and I've had a pair now for about 2 weeks, and just to get a bit of a read on what they are doing in comparison to the old version. So in today's video, we're going to dial into all the engineering features of this shoe, where it's come from with the V1, the outsole, the midsole, the upper. Just talk about the specifications of this shoe and why you would be buying something like this, and give you all the information at home to, who knows, maybe make this your next race day shoe. Okay guys, let's talk about race day shoes. So we can even talk about race day shoes for the last 30 to 50 years. They are lighter weight, less construction, less cushioning more often than not, and they are designed to go fast. Now, Nike rebucked that system a few years ago when they did the 4% and the release of that shoe, because it was a very light but very cushioned shoe, but it had the full-length carbon plate injected into the midsole. Now that's exactly what they've kept, obviously, with the Next from the last version being V1 and now up to the V2 itself. So this is a race day shoe. Anywhere from 5K road right up to your marathon, it's going to feel insanely light and very fast underneath your foot. Now, they were the pioneers, I suppose, in this space with the carbon plate. Now I say that with a grain of salt, because Adidas were the first brand to inject a carbon plate into the shoe in the early 2000s, but they didn't go on with that momentum. Nike spent the time in their lab testing their elite athletes and dialing into what a race day shoe now looks like. And as we know, a lot of other brands have jumped on and are making their versions of a full-length carbon plate shoe. Now, let's touch on the Next right here now, because it is probably the most race shoe globally in regards to road running events around the world. And what Nike have done with this specific shoe is they've made something very light and very soft. Just to touch on the outsole first, nothing has changed from the V1 Next to the V2. We've got the exact same construction underneath the foot. So we have a slightly more durable rubber through the forefoot to protect the asset, which is the midsole. And just down the back half of the heel through here, we do have a strategically placed piece of rubber on the lateral and the medial side, just to provide the back half of the shoe a little bit of structure and integrity, again to protect the asset being the ZoomX midsole. Coming up to the midsole right now, what we have here is a 40 mil drop, stack in the heel to a 32 mil in the forefoot, so a variance of 8 millimeters. Now, I've done some reading and some reports. There is subtle variances in that, but there's 39.5 from some people in the heel, but the consistent feedback was that it's 40 millimeters in the heel and 32 millimeters in the forefoot. And inside this midsole is a whole heap of magic. You've got the full-length carbon plate, which runs from the rear of the foot right through to the forefoot, and it does dip down to get closer to the ground, which provides that little bit of structure and integrity and stiffens the shoe up through the forefoot, which allows you to lean on the ZoomX midsole to get that explosive, responsive feel that you are demanding out of your race day shoe. Now, the theory has been out there that it's the carbon plate that makes the shoe so responsive. It's not the carbon plate, it's the ZoomX midsole. So the carbon plate just stiffens the shoe up, which aids in that release on your metatarsal heads as you explode out of your gait cycle, but the response comes from the softness and the responsiveness of the ZoomX foam. So that's been something that's been debated now for a few years, but it certainly is the foam that is essentially where the magic is within this shoe itself. Now, just touching on the midsole, come back to the outsole, it is a very narrow construction through the arch and through the heel, and what that essentially does is it's not a shoe that you're going to lean on for support, right? So all of our testing we have done in our Sportitude fitting rooms downstairs, using RunScribe technology, we have found that the range of movement is higher in the Next versus the other carbon plate shoes out there. So we're seeing more movement. The velocity of movement is increased as well. So what does that mean? Well, for you at home, essentially if you're looking at a race day shoe and you're running at race day paces, you are going to get a quicker transition through your gait cycle, which is exactly what this shoe is all about. Now, you are going to be selecting this shoe if you are looking to run fast times. Now, I would not be putting this on too many people's feet if they're looking to go slow in a race. You should be leaning on something with a little bit more structure and integrity. This is purely to chase PBs, to get people up on the podium and to look to run fast times. So therefore, that runner is going to be able to tolerate that additional load of speed of transition through their gait cycle. Their foot and function of their lower limb mechanics is going to be able to tolerate that high velocity of movement, which is essentially what this shoe is putting through your lower limb. Now, coming to the upper of this shoe, which is essentially where the change has occurred from the V1. So you had the vapor weave in the V1, which was rolled out over about probably 10 or so colors over the last 12 months. And we have gone to a slightly more open construction through here. Now, I would say it's very similar to the knit they have used in the Alpha Fly. So they call it the Atom knit. If it's not exactly the same, it is almost identical. So it is a little bit lighter and certainly a lot more breathable on top as well. So the good thing is with that is if you can reduce the weight a little bit but get a little bit more ventilation on your foot for race day, that's absolutely spot on. Now, what they have done as well, Nike, is they've just added a little bit more reinforcement through the forefoot. So you can almost see this welded construction with the blue as it comes around the lateral side of the forefoot to the medial side of that forefoot. That's just currently going to provide a little bit more structure and integrity for your forefoot or the toe box, which sits on top of that midsole. And it's going to aid the support structure as you then toe off out of your gait cycle with this shoe. And as we touched on, it's going to be a quick toe off. So you want to keep your foot in a good position up top through there. And just coming back to the back half of the shoe itself, on the internal heel collar system, it's exactly the same. They've got that strategically placed foam just inside the heel collar, provide a little bit of padding and comfort. And same thing goes with version 1. So they haven't really changed the construction of the internal heel collar. If anything, they've just added a little bit more height around this suede material up top of that knitted construction, or that, that little weaved construction through here. So a little bit more height in the suede material, but the collar is exactly the same through there. Okay guys, wrapping up the Vaporfly Next version 2. Kudos to Nike, they've got something that's working quite well, so they haven't gone back to the drawing board and changed the midsole. But I would love to be a fly on the wall at the moment at Nike HQ, because they would be working on version 3 of this, and I would love to know what they're going to be doing with regards to the midsole. Will they change it? Who knows? But it certainly has worked for the last 12 to 18 months, and where they have come from the 4% to the next percent, they are certainly dominating this space. Not to say there's great options out there from other brands, but this shoe is, in my opinion, still the race day shoe. So if you've got any questions on this shoe here, guys, the version 2, drop it in the comment section below. If you've been wearing a Next percent or a 4% back in the day, or you've had a Zoom Fly, or you're using a carbon plate shoe and you like to throw your opinion in there, drop in the comments field below. You guys can continue your conversations with everyone else out there down below. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the red button, stay notified, and we'll keep pumping out these shoe reviews for you guys, the runners at home. And until next time, guys, stay safe, be kind to one another. Happy racing, good luck with your training, and we'll see you out on the road. Take care.